Alright, Vought Rising already looks absolutely insane. And honestly, this might become the darkest thing in the boys' universe so far, which is honestly terrifying considering how unhinged that universe already is. Because after watching the first trailer, I genuinely don't think this series is trying to be another simple superhero spin-off. This feels more like a twisted historical crime story, disguised as superhero television. And the craziest part? It looks like Prime Video is going full horror mode with the origins of Vought International. The series is set in 1950s New York and focuses on the early days of Vought itself, long before Homelander, the Seven, or modern celebrity superheroes existed. And honestly, that setting alone already changes the vibe completely. Because instead of modern satire about influencers and corporations, this show seems ready to attack the myth of classic American heroism itself. The trailer immediately feels darker and more disturbing than I expected. You've got brutal Compound V experiments happening in creepy underground facilities, blood everywhere, government secrets, Cold War paranoia, and this constant feeling that something deeply evil is being born underneath America's golden age. That atmosphere honestly reminded me less of superhero media and more like psychological war horror. Now, obviously, the biggest attention grabber here is Jensen Ackles returning as Soldier Boy, but this time, we're seeing him before he became the toxic, broken monster we know from the main series. And honestly, that's fascinating, because the trailer makes him look almost hopeful at first, like a guy who genuinely wanted to become an American hero, fight for his country, protect people, become a symbol. But if you know the boys' universe, you already know optimism never survives long there. And I think this series is going to show us exactly how Ben slowly became corrupted by Vought's system. That's what makes this project interesting to me. It's not just about superhero action, it's about institutional corruption creating monsters over time. And then there's Aya Cash returning as young Stormfront, or technically Clara Vought here. And honestly, she might become the scariest part of the entire show, because unlike Homelander, Stormfront was always terrifying in a more calculated way. She understood propaganda, manipulation, ideology. And now, the series is fully diving into her Nazi connections and her relationship with Frederick Vought. That's huge for the lore, because it confirms what many fans suspected for years. Vought International wasn't corrupted later, it was corrupted from the very beginning, built on fascism, experiments, and the weaponization of heroism itself. And honestly, that makes the entire boys' universe even darker retroactively, because it means every fake hero, every corporate lie, and every disaster we've seen in the franchise traces back to these origins. Now, one thing I really love about the trailer is how it uses the 1950s setting, because this clearly isn't nostalgic Americana. This is the boys ripping apart the fantasy of the greatest generation. You can already see hints of racism, propaganda, media manipulation, and blind nationalism hiding underneath the shiny retro aesthetic. And honestly, that's exactly what The Boys does best. It takes American myths and exposes the ugliness underneath. That's why the vintage superhero team shown in the trailer is so interesting too. Characters like Bombsight, Private Angel, and Torpedo already feel less like real heroes and more like early Vought products, experiments being packaged as patriotic entertainment. That's disturbing, and honestly, very believable for this universe. Now, visually, this might honestly become the most stylish boys project yet. The retro costumes, the noir-inspired lighting, the old-school propaganda aesthetic mixed with gore and body horror. It all feels incredibly uncomfortable in the best possible way, almost like Watchmen mixed with Cold War conspiracy horror. And I think that tone separation is important now, because after Gen V ended and the boys' main storyline wrapped up, Prime Video desperately needs a new flagship for this universe. And honestly, Vought Rising might actually have more long-term potential than Gen V ever did, because this series directly connects to the core mythology of the entire franchise, Compound V, the origins of superhero commercialization, the birth of corrupt hero culture.
possibly even the early foundations leading toward Homelander eventually. That's massive lore territory. Now, my biggest hope is that the show doesn't become too dependent on shock value, because let's be honest, the Boys franchise sometimes risks relying too much on gore, sex, and look how edgy we are moments. And while that chaos is part of the identity, the best parts of The Boys have always been the political satire and character psychology underneath the violence. That's why Soldier Boy worked so well originally. Underneath all the jokes and insanity, he was genuinely tragic, a broken product created by toxic systems. And I think Vought Rising has the opportunity to explore that tragedy way deeper now, especially if the show really dives into how Vought manipulated patriotism and fear to build its empire. Now here's my biggest theory. I think the series will eventually reveal that Soldier Boy and Clara weren't truly in control at all. I think there's going to be someone even higher behind the scenes, shaping Vaught's direction from the shadows. Because in this universe, power always hides behind corporations and institutions, never just individuals. And honestly, that idea feels way scarier than another random supervillain. At the end of the day, Vought Rising looks like it could become either the smartest Boys spin-off yet, or a show that disappears into pure shock content chaos. Personally, I'm cautiously excited, because the trailer genuinely feels ambitious, disturbing, and politically sharp in a way most superhero projects are too afraid to be now. And honestly, that's exactly why the Boys universe still stands out. Anyway, what do you guys think? Are you more excited to see Soldier Boy's origin story, or the rise of young Stormfront and the creation of Vought itself? And do you think Vought Rising could actually become better than Gen V? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more, and help us to hit our first 100 subscribers. Thanks guys, and see you in the next one.